when you think of what you eat from a diet standpoint, what do you follow a specific type of diet?
So what is the main things? The main thing is actually what you said, like intermittent fasting. So I haven't eaten anything today. So I'm doing 18 hours with 0 calorie intake, just water and black coffee, but no calorie intake. Yeah, which is, by the way, any form of fasting is great. That's just the fasting which works for me in sort of my daily rhythm. Like other people do 5-day fasting and then eat normally. So I do like 16 to 18 hours, no calorie intake. Why? You said it's counterintuitive, but like your body goes into like a laundry mode, you could say it that way. Like, so if it's flushing out senescent cells, it's really rejuvenating. And it starts around about hour 14 that you go into that sort of state. So the longer actually you can be, if you could be, sometimes I make a full day without food or without anything, that is actually ideal. I try to not eat a lot of carbs. Maybe the healthy ones, lentils, whatever, but not the bad ones, carbs, pasta, blah, blah, blah. I actually take metformin. That is, I think, sort of from the medical side, the most we know potent.
You said metformin?
Metformin, yeah, which is actually a diabetes drug, but which seems to mimic fasting. And then there is a newer version, which actually is interesting because I always have in psychedelics with some people that discussion about patents, like is it allowed to patent psychedelic substances because it's God's given things? And I think patents are inherently important for drug development, which we unfortunately see with metformin, because metformin is a diabetes drug which is out of patent. It's super cheap. So there are great studies, but not FDA studies. So more like looking at people who take metformin, how they age, whatever, which suggests that metformin is incredibly healthy, but no pharma company is putting the money up to prove it in an FDA-like framework because they can't make money with it. So it would be great if metformin is in patent again, because people would then hopefully prove it. Like somebody did it, Novo Nordisk has a drug called Ozempic, which is also a diabetes drug. So it shows, by the way, that it seems to be that.
So when you take metformin, what does it do to you?
So it's kind of, in a non-medical way, it's mimicking fasting.
Got it.
Yeah, it's controlling your insulin spike and that whole world of taking food, especially sugar or sugar-like foods, which makes your insulin spike, whatever. That seems to, over the course of our life, be one of the drivers for inflammation, cardiovascular diseases, whatever. So metformin, sort of in a more complex way than I can describe it now, but is sort of
bringing that back.
Now. And the same is Ozempic, but what I was saying is like, because it's in patent, they've proven it. So Ozempic now has been FDA approved, not just for diabetes, but for weight loss, and for prevention of cardiovascular diseases.
Okay. Do you take anything else like NAD or any of these other
Yes, everything.
things?
I take 50 pills a day.
Whoa. Unpack.
Hey,
but that's
like,
really got that like 3. All right. So metformin.
So metformin. What are the essentials? Metformin. I take NAD plus.
What does NAD plus do for folks? I just pulled up very quickly. This is a paper in Science that basically talks about NAD plus and aging metabolism and neurodegeneration, right? And basically the whole idea is a lot of aging comes down to metabolism, the destruction of your cells, the faster deterioration of them, et cetera. And so each one of these things, I'm assuming that you're taking, has some impact. Some of them are directly, some of them are indirectly, whatever, insulin. It all plays into this complex system that is the human body. But that's essentially what you're trying to get at, is to slow down the deterioration of the cells, or even potentially building them back up, and kind of the idea that you can reverse your biological age versus your chronological age is, appears to be possible, according to some of these guys. Yeah,
there's this great study. You can do it with human growth hormones. Like there was these, I think it was Stanford study, if 70-year-old men take human growth hormones, metformin and DHEA. And then the question is, by the way, we're coming to an interesting point. What is actually, how do we measure sort of age, like sort of not your age in birth years, but in like how you appear or how you feel, which we don't have yet. And Stanford was the first one, I think it was Stanford, who developed like a scale. We're like, okay, if we give these, 20 men, like human growth hormones, metformin and DHEA, how can we measure if they really rejuvenate? And they came up with a number of biomarkers, whatever, which is, by the way, one of the tasks we have to do. And Cambrian, James just started a big sort of think tank where we sort of align all, let's call it longevity biotech companies, because at the moment, if you go to the FDA and say, hey, I found the wonder pill, which makes us live 10 years longer, it's really hard to get an approval or actually even the study approved, because you're not solving for a real problem, because aging and dying is not classified as a disease. So what all these aging companies do at the moment, and this is what Cambrian, for example, and I have another one in Europe, Rejuveron, these are my two aging plays. What they're doing is like, you have to find drugs which have an imminent, immediate effect on a certain disease. And then you can approve it for that disease, but you have a second layer effect that okay, once I have approved it for this single disease, everybody will take it because it's so beneficial. I give you one example. We're working on one drug, actually pretty advanced. So the shortening of the telomeres is one other in these 9 hallmarks of aging.
Have you guys, just real quick, have you guys read The Telomere Effect?
No.
You should read it. Basically, for those, in the most elementary example, your shoelace, it has on the end of the shoelace the plastic caps.
Yep.
Basically, every single one of your DNA strands has these essentially caps to them. And as they get shorter, the shorter your telomeres get, basically the more aging you have, the shorter your lifespan will be. And so there's a bunch of things that you can do, like in immense stress, bad eating, whatever, to accelerate the shortening of the caps. But also the belief is that maybe you can slow down the shortening, or potentially could you reverse it? Could you actually extend back the caps so that you're essentially reversing kind of the negative effect on telomeres? So.
And it's amazing, perfectly explained. And there is
I don't just know about Bitcoin, but I just talking about Bitcoin.
Fascinating. And you have a childhood disease, and everybody of us has seen that, because once in a while the media is like, oh, look at this child. It's looks like an 80-year-old, but is 19. So there is a disease where the telomeres shrink and shorten in rapid speed. And then, unfortunately, children who have this disease look with 15 like an 80-year-old, which is showing that. So we have a drug in phase 1, but so a little bit advanced, but not years away, but sort of in the middle of drug development, which we think has the potential to cure the childhood disease. So that is a real disease. I can go to the FDA. It's actually even an orphan disease, so I can get very quick approval because these children are dying when they are 20. But obviously, if I get a drug approved which stops shortening of the telomeres for these children, very clear use case, then I would take it as well if it stops the shortening of my telomeres. So, and this is at the moment how all longevity companies do these workaround. So they find a molecule or a compound and they have an assumption, but they always have to prove it in a concrete disease. And I hope, and this is what we're lobbying for, that in some years, the sooner the better, especially the FDA as the sort of number 1 regulator in the world, is saying, well, let's define biomarkers which define aging. And if you can change these biomarkers positively, so if you sort of can slow down and provenly slow down aging, we do approve that because we agree with you, and this is what it is. Aging is a disease, and we have to sort of solve it.